this video, I had one of these moments. I noticed during Loomis and Umbra's duel that when he ritual summoned, he had 5 cards in his hand, but after he had 4. But wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. This is because, well, he has 5 cards in his hand. He activates the ritual spell, tributing the 2 monsters on the field to activate it. He then summons the ritual monster in his hand. By my maths, he should have 3 cards left in his hand, but he doesn't. Animation error, you might say. Inconsistencies in hands in the anime, they do happen a lot, but not in this case. Instead, I think I have made a shocking discovery. That, honestly, I actually haven't seen anybody else talk about online or anywhere. I've Googled it enough, but no one seems to talk about it. It's not a big deal or anything like that. Ritual monsters in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime are extra deck monsters. Keep in mind that statement is exclusive only to Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Everything after that, they follow the real world rules. Ritual monsters have to be in your hand and the ritual spell to get them to the field. To confirm this, let's take a look every time a ritual monster was summoned. Let's start first with... First crazy fact I'm going to lay down, there's not that many ritual monsters in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime. In fact, there's only a whopping 7 in total throughout the entirety of Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Outside of these 2 seasons, what else is there? There's 5-headed dragon, that one ritual monster, the ice thing that Darts played. Kaiba summons the Paladin of White Dragon. I think that's it. I think there's only 3 other ones. So I think you get 10 ritual summons throughout the entire Duel Monsters series. Kind of crazy. Specifically for season 1, we get 3 rituals. Duelist Kingdom, well, it's got wacky rules. Basically, it has D&D ruling spliced with Yu-Gi-Oh! I've done a whole video on this explaining how the mechanics work, but what is interesting is that fusion monsters in Duelist Kingdom are not extra deck monsters. They're not main deck monsters. They are fabricated monsters. The physical cards don't exist. There might be a list somewhere that lists every single potential fusion, or you can just fuse any 2 cards together. And basically the dueling arena will fabricate a combination of those 2 monsters. However, it's not the same for ritual monsters. They are physical cards because we see Maximilian Pegasus have his relinquished on the field, proving they are actual cards. Where is that relinquished coming from? Is it being summoned from his hand, the deck, or the extra deck? To find the answer, let's look at the first ritual summon. In Yugi's duel with Mai Valentine, we see Yugi's hand constantly, and not once does he ever have the Blackluster Soldier ritual monster in his hand. In fact, he is specifically searching for a different card, the ritual spell, and as soon as he top decks that ritual spell, he activates it to summon his Blackluster Soldier. So this is a case where we don't actually need to check about the amount of cards in his hand changing after he activates it. Was the spell and the monster sent away? Well, it doesn't matter. We saw his hand the turn before. No Blackluster Soldier. He top decks the ritual spell, uses it. Where did Blackluster Soldier come from? Well, my guess is from the extra deck. It's worth mentioning now as well, throughout Duelist Kingdom, ritual monsters need the tributes for their summon to be on the field in order for their summon. So the way this works in Duelist Kingdom is when you activate a ritual, you have to have typically a specific monster on the field. You tribute the other monster and you stick this essence in the new vessel, and this creates and transforms that monster into a new ritual form. For example, when Yugi used Blackluster Ritual, Gaia the Fierce Knight became the Blackluster Soldier when it was infused with Karibo. Again, with Black Magic Ritual, Dark Magician became the Magician of Black Chaos. Finally, for Pegasus, Dark Eyes Illusionist became relinquished. That's just a little fun fact, not necessarily anything to do, but we're learning about rituals today. So yeah, what was the next ritual that was summoned in Duelist Kingdom? Well, it was... Pegasus activates his Black Illusion ritual that he has set face down, tributing Dark Eyes Illusionist on the field to summon relinquished. Yet again, we never see the relinquished monster in his hand, even though we do see his hand a couple times. In fact, Pegasus has 6 cards in his hand when he performs the ritual summon. His hand after the ritual stays exactly the same. He didn't summon anything from his hand, so relinquished must have come from somewhere else. That is 2/3 of the hand checks done. Final check. For Magician of Chaos, we see Yugi's hand. He has a bunch of stuff in there, but no ritual. He draws 2 cards for his 2 turns after and uses both of them. These were Mystic Box and Brain Control. Finally, he uses the ritual spell of a Yugi set face down earlier in the duel. He tributes his Dark Magician and then summons Magician of Chaos. So based on this, we know exactly what Yugi had in his hand up to when he played his ritual spell. We knew his ritual spell was on the field, which means he never had a ritual monster in his hand. We saw his hand. So that means ritual monsters 100% during Duelist Kingdom are extra deck monsters. Now, I will make the case they could be being summoned from the deck, the main deck, instead of a extra deck or pocket or wherever they're getting them from. However, my case to lean more from the coming from the extra deck is because they never say the words, I summon the ritual monster from my deck or anything like that. It always seems like it's appeared from somewhere else. Not only that, but we also never see a ritual monster in hand throughout any duels, which I would have thought either would have happened just by chance they happened to draw it, or for the animators to show a ritual monster in hand as kind of a foreshadowing, like, oh, this powerful monster in his hand, how can he get that out? He's after the ritual spell. So to me, it makes me think, yeah, they're not main deck monsters at all. They're extra deck monsters. So the next question is this also true for... There are 4 ritual monsters summoned throughout the entirety of Battle City. First of all, let's get the one that inspired this video out the way. After Umbra summons his Masked Beast ritual monster, his hand of 5 should now have gone to 3 since he used 2 cards in his hand, the ritual spell and the ritual monster. However, next time we see his hand, he's got 4 cards in there, meaning the only way that this maths can make sense is if he used only 1 card in his hand, which was the ritual spell. So, the Masked Beast came from the extra deck. But what about... This duel, by the way, Joey versus Mako Tsunami, has, for some reason, Duelist Kingdom logic to the duels. Like, monsters can be underwater for so long, you can hide monsters underwater. There's so much wacky stuff. It's like a season 1 duel. I am scared for my future self that has to analyze this duel. Please don't request it. But from my findings, what did I discover partially analyzing this duel? Despite the fact that hand sizes are constantly wrong throughout this duel, no cards in hand, then a bunch of cards in hand. It's a bit of a mess, but it's fine. Since what we do see is Mako drawing his Fortress Whale's Oath, activating it, tributing Jellyfish and Great White from his hand to ritual summon Fortress Whale. Now, his hand size should go down by 3 here. 6 cards, ritual monster, if we're going by my logic, so we should have 3 cards left. However, next time we see his hand, well, it's gone. This is a continuity error. They keep making mistakes with the hand in this episode, but it does reappear later. And luckily, the number of cards in his hand appears to be right from the cards he used to get to that point. Meaning, yes, the number of cards in his hand after reverse engineering the duel is correct had the ritual monster in his hand been an extra deck monster. So this was a messy one, but it is confirmed. Citadel Whale, well, it came from the extra deck. But what about... Now, this duel has a few hand size consistencies. Even worse, it has Bandit Keith cheesing cards in and out of his hand to make the whole thing a real mess. This was a tough one to reverse engineer, but from what I have seen, Keith's hand is shown very often in the duel, and not once does he ever have Zera the Mant in it. So let's make sure. Keith starts his turn with 5 cards, he uses Graceful Charity, and then uses his Zera Ritual. So he should end the turn with 4 cards in his hand if my theory that rituals come from the extra deck. So is there any evidence for this? Well, yes. Next turn is when we see his hand. He draws for turn and has 5 cards. Sayaryu, which he summons to the field, along with Solemn Judgment, Ground Attack Bergoth, Curse of Fiend, and Stop Defense. So there's confirmation yet again, but we have one last one. Yes, by the way, Mystical Beast Surcat in the anime is a ritual monster. Fun fact, it's actually summoned kind of interestingly as well. Odion, on the turn he summons this monster, has 3 cards in his hand. He activates the ritual spell in his hand, along with the set ritual that is face down on his field, along with the field spell he already has on the field. He summons Surcat. So 3 cards, he only used 1 in his hand, so he should have 2. How many does he have the next time we see him? Well, next time we see his hand, look at that! 2 cards in his hand, meaning Serket was summoned from his extra deck. Because if it would have come from his hand, he would have only had 1 card. So if you've been counting along, that is all 7 ritual monsters summoned during Duelist Kingdom and Battle City, summoned from the extra deck. And just to clarify and prove it doesn't apply for the later seasons, in the virtual world arc, which I know happens in the middle of Battle City, when you see the big 5 summon their 5-headed dragon, oh look at that, it's in their hand. The same also applies to the other 2 rituals used, the one by Darts and the one by Kyber. The number of cards in their hand changes, even though we don't see the monster, so there you go. Crazy bit of coincidence. Just so happens the Rush Duel game has had ritual monsters added to it. And you'll never guess what ritual monsters do in Rush Duel. They are summoned from the extra deck. I think that's crazy coincidence. I'm making a video about ritual monsters being from the extra deck. Rush Duel, just by chance, the same week I'm making my video, you can summon them from the extra deck in Rush Duels now. I think that's crazy. To end this video, I want to ask you all a question. If duel monsters would have stuck with ritual monsters being extra deck monsters, do you think they would have been exceptionally strong? Just imagine the fact that you could activate Black Illusion Ritual on the turn you draw it, tribute any level 1 or higher monster on the field, and then just summon a Relinquished from your extra deck. But with that in mind, it would also mean in modern day, where the extra deck is kind of limited, you get 15 cards to fill that baby up. Most Link Synchro Fusion monsters are quite necessary to put in there, but if you want to play a ritual deck, that's also going to take up the spaces in there. Obviously, a lot of ritual decks now are based on the ritual monsters having effects in the hand and things like that, so it probably wouldn't work out as well, but I mean, if you were willing to take the hit on those certain cards, you could completely drastically change the way rituals are played. Interested to hear your opinions below. Other than that though, thank you all for watching. Check out this video if you fancy, or this one if you fancy that one. Thank you all for watching. Catch you later.